Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your hosts, Jake and Scott. And in this week's episode, we are going to talk about what's going to happen in 2025. Do you have any predictions? Because we have a few. So sit back and buckle in to the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Scott, we're back. Quick episode number 2 in the same night. As people may see this video floating around social media, YouTube in particular, I'm still wearing this beanie. Shout out to Barrelcraft Spirits for giving this to me. And you're still rocking your SN Pine Magnolia, whatever that is.
Yeah. Magnolia Bourbon.
Oh, Magnolia Bourbon.
Ohio.
Okay. And I also am still rocking my 5 Keys. Got to go down to Diageo. This is my buy when we were on our Mint Julep tour a couple years ago.
The amount of bourbon swag I acquired in 24, hopefully I can surpass that in 25.
That'd be a lot of bourbon swag. I have been meaning to break out my fluorescent Penelope beanie that they gave me. It is highlighter yellow.
Might need that for the snow.
Yeah. Well, let's not talk about that. It's kind of like if you've ever seen Encanto, we don't talk about Bruno. We shouldn't talk about the snow anymore. But Encanto has been the new movie of the house right now.
Oh God.
We're all about Encanto as a whole.
You need to watch the new Moana.
So is Moana too good? We just watched the first one for the first time.
It's good. It's a little far out there. For me, it's a little bit sci-fi-ish, which I didn't really remember from the first one, but it's good. Kid liked it. And
did you go in theaters?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We've seen quite a few movies lately. Sonic 3 was the most recent one.
See, I'm trying to get Jameson to watch Sonic 1. I'm just trying to get him in the first one. It looks like a clever movie.
Do you have Netflix?
We do. Sonic 1 and 2 are on Netflix.
Start him with Sonic Prime.
Is it like an anime thing?
Yeah. Just to get him started with the characters that, get the gist of the show.
See, the reason why I'm interested in Sonic 3, this is nerd alert time. I played Sonic on some video game system, but where I got to play a Shadow, and I really enjoyed that video game. And I think Shadow's a badass. So
would that have been the Genesis? No,
it might have been on the Dreamcast, to be honest with you.
I think it might have been.
Yeah.
Sega Dreamcast. I think you're right.
Dreamcast was far ahead of its time. It literally shit on every other video game, but people didn't adopt it. And you could have a memory card that was a little Tamagotchi type thing. It was awesome.
I was always a PlayStation kid after that generation.
See, I started off as a PlayStation person, and then I got an Xbox, and that thing, the original Xbox, literally not only did it play Halo, you could literally beat someone to death with that thing. It was so effing heavy. It was insane. That thing probably weighed the console.
The whole console.
The console weighed 25 pounds. I'm convinced. It was a brick.
And it was all for the 256 gig hard drive.
Oh, man. My Xbox One X has a terabyte. I haven't bought a physical game in 20 years.
I need to speak with somebody who can help me upgrade my son's PS5 to a 2 terabyte or something, because the size of that memory card is so tiny. He's got 3 or 4 games, sports games, and it's full. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Pisses me off. And he's even got the disc, and it still caps out.
But you still have to download crap.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Disc.
It's still 30 gigs per game, and he's got the damn disc. I'm like, this is stupid.
So
that's my gripe for 2025.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just first of all, shout out to Preservation. This has been going around. This is 2024 whiskey, but I am sipping the Antique, the 20-year-old whiskey. So,
all right. So I need to pour that.
You need to pour that for this episode, because I feel as we look forward, it's always fun to look back, right? It's always fun to have whiskey of yesteryear. So this is dusty, as dusty can get.
I have a sharp knife, and I know how to use it. So
to cut his finger.
20-year-old Preservation.
Yes, we are.
And I have to find an empty glass.
There we go. I put it in a glass that I already had something in it. There we go. Still does well. So we'll start here. So there's been a revival of vintage spirits. whether you go to Bax's Co., Revival Vintage Spirits up in Northern Kentucky, Neat Bottle Shop here locally in Louisville, does vintage spirits, dusty whiskey continue to be a thing in 2025?
I think it will. And I think it might be like the last year, because here's the deal. People have been searching for dusty whiskey in their parents' and grandparents' basements, attics, mini bars, whatever. I don't see like a huge discovery of vintage spirits like coming soon. Like it's been building for a while now. Like people have found a lot of the stocks that exist. Now, yes, there will be some major discoveries, things like that, but it's like, but now is the drinking of those spirits exceeding the discovery? I think that's probably where we are.
Yeah. What we need Nick Cage for National Treasure 3 to hunt down the allocated, dusty whiskey collection of America. I got a movie title, National Treasure 3. I got the movie title and I got the character.
Yeah. I mean,
now I just need a writer. I know a producer. His name's David Thomas Tao. He produces Broadway shows. I'm
sure.
How much money do we need to raise to get Nick Cage in on this? You think? 250 mil?
Probably quite a pretty penny. But yeah, I think, like Revival Vintage Spirits and like some of the like neat bottle, Justin's House of Bourbon, they probably disagree with me that it's an untapped market, but I just don't know how much more bourbon can be found.
Well, and what's considered dusty at this point? Like I have Kentucky Maker's Mark bottles that date back to the mid 90s, but like, is that a dusty? I mean, people say the 1998 Maker's Mark Kentucky bottle is like one of the best Maker's Marks ever. Well, I've got 4 of them. Fat chance I sell any of them, but I'll drink them with somebody. Somebody wants to come over. But that, like, once I open that bottle, it's got to go in that night. It can't just like stay open. That's not a thing.
It's not going to last long. Yeah.
No. So
that'd be interesting. We'll see.
Well, we'll see. Another thing, I teased this on the way out, the last podcast. I should have started with this, but does Umbriana die in 2025?
I think people get exhausted with all the unique cask finishes for bourbons.
Okay. So which cask finishes will stay then is the better question in your opinion?
None. I think that they will transition to American Single Malt. Those cask types will. I just feel like there's going to be a return to center for the American whiskey bourbon consumer. The hobbyists, the enthusiasts, the whatever you want to call them, the people like me who more often than not pour bourbon before anything else, they just want to have a good bourbon. We get tired of all the fancy, frilly, like, what's next? Like, I don't want another honey cask bourbon. I don't want another maple finished bourbon. I don't want another, Umbriana. It has its place, but I'm exhausted.
Does it though? Does Umbriana have its place by itself? Does an Umbriana finish by itself have its place?
I think as a dessert whiskey, yes.
Whew.
But that's about it. But I generally wouldn't reach for it more than once. Like, I'm going to open a bottle, going to pour a little bit, taste it, maybe share it with somebody. But I'm not going to be pouring that every night. Not every night that I drink, I don't drink every night, but like your everyday drinker, that's not an Umbriana cask. It's a 5 to 7 to 10 year old bourbon, Kentucky straight bourbon or whatever. That's just well done. I think that's where we're going to return to center.
I think you kind of hit where I would think. I think craft whiskey needs to be hitting on bottled and bond 5, 6, 7 years. I think take a page out of what Still Austin's doing. Yeah, you got your finishes or whatever, but like stick to your core. You have a 5-year blue corn bottled and bond this year. You have a 6-year blue corn bottled and bond next year, again, 2025. Age up your product, get it to where you want it, release it at 100 proof. That way people can proof it down. They can use it for cocktails. They can use forever, or 90 or 80. God forbid, like you want to shit on Basil Hayden. Like, don't do that.
I drank the hell out of some Basil Hayden 10-year on New Year's Eve.
This is what I will tell people. For people that crap on Basil Hayden, like, get a life. Like, just stop. 80 proof whiskey is what the majority of the world drinks. We are snobs and we try to drink high proof, like burn our esophaguses out. Like, that's not a thing for most people in the world.
Yeah.
10-year Basil Hayden is delightful.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit overpriced. Which
it's what, $60?
No, I think it's almost 80.
Mm.
So it's like at one time it was like right there with Bakers and Bookers. Like now Bakers and Bookers I think are a little bit higher, near 100.
They're like 99, 100.
Yeah. So it's like, I think it's a little bit overpriced for what it is, 80 proof, but it's a 10-year, well-aged, well-blended bourbon.
But it also meets the threshold of $10 a year.
Yeah. Yeah,
but like
it's good. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I drank it on New Year's Eve because I was like, well, we're going to our neighbors at 6:30 and we're going to be over there till 12:30 or 1 o'clock. Like, I need something a little bit lighter. I knew we were going to be drinking other things. We drank a lot of other 10 years too. We drank a 10-year Four Roses single barrel. We drank a 9-year Penelope Estate collection. We drank a 10-year Eagle Rare, 10-year Bullet. So it's like tasting it beside those, it still packed the same amount of flavor as all of those. And they were all generally higher proof.
So, podcast episode for 2025. 10-year-old shelfers. And I'm going to throw Eagle Rare into being a shelfer because it's a $40 bottle. It's a shelfer. Russell's 10. So we need to acquire a bottle. If we don't already have one. I don't have one currently.
I gotta go search. Yeah, I think I found one.
Eagle Rare, Basil Hayden.
Yep.
And what's another good 10? A Bullet 10 would be a good one. So those 4 blind, I think that'd be a great podcast.
All right. If I wouldn't have finished the Bullet 10, I would volunteer that bottle. But I will hold on to the Basil Hayden 10, and we will make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's
coming.
I think it's great. Yeah. I think it's a great podcast episode for 2025. Okay, so do you have any predictions of anything that may die? Going back to the cask finishing, I think some wine finishes are here to stay. I think your sherry, your Pedro Jimenez, I think those types of things are here to stay. I think the wild cask finishes may go away a little bit, but I think your craft distilleries will still play with your VDNs, your Pinot de Charente, your, maple, honey,
Tokai,
the gimmicky things.
Yeah.
But like, I think the majority of the main producers will probably pick a line like a sherry and run with that. If I was a craft brand, I would really kind of follow a Scotch kind of portfolio, and I would say I'm a sherried whiskey portfolio. So I have my normal, here's my mean, this is my brand, and then here's everything a little bit more sherried and a little bit more sherried and a little bit more sherried. That's what I would do if I owned a craft brand. I would kind of follow that. Like, I'm a Vino de Naraha. So like, I love that citrus because my natural base distillate has citrus. So I want to ratchet that thing up to 1,000. Boom. Like, that's what I would do. Instead of having a portfolio of 1,000 casks, I would pick one cask and just level it up and blend it in. That would be really cool. If someone's listening, would love to do that with you.
That's interesting.
No one's doing that though. They're picking 1,000 casks.
Yeah, I think it's probably just trying to find what plays well because they don't have the history that like Scotch has. Like, Scotch would say like, oh, we're a peated Islay Scotch. We're a such and such Highland Scotch. We're a sherried whiskey. So it's like, maybe that's where the distilleries are trying to find their sweet spot. And then maybe that will happen. But I don't, maybe this is crazy, but I got to thinking about like the surge in popularity of tequila
Hmm.
and mezcal spirits. And there's been a few like tequila mezcal finishes and like some of that influence. I don't know if that's like an avenue that people might play in, but like maybe some of the overly influential like maple, honey, umbrana, like maybe those casks kind of slow down a little bit. It's all about supply too. I think that some of the craft brands are saying like, oh, we've got a supply of sherry cask or VDN cask or whatever. Let's play in that space. There will probably be a surplus of tequila cask.
I mean, there's got to be, right?
Or anejo or aged agave spirits cask. Like, how do they play in that space to bring some of those tequila people back into whiskey?
Yeah. I mean, there's been some añejo finished whiskeys. Okay. I wouldn't necessarily say great by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. I don't know. I'm very interested to see what that does.
I've tasted a few tequilas in the past month or two with some people that really like tequila, and it opened my eyes a little bit to how good that clear spirit can be. That's not aged, but
so Blanco tequila, I'm out on, like, as a sipper, unless it's frigid cold. Añejo, Reposado, I can sip. I think tequila's in for 25. I'm working on a tequila episode for 25 for Cinco de Mayo. So I'm in on that, but I'm not fully in. Like, I like the idea of the bourbon crossover type stuff where it has bourbon influence, just like I'm in on rum for that bourbon influence.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just can't get behind a clear spirit. Like, gin's about as close as I get, but like I prefer barrel aged gin to even clear gin.
Interesting.
I don't know. That's just me. But like, I don't like clear spirits at all. Like, I had a couple bad nights on vodka in like high school and college. Don't drink before you're of age. Like, just being honest with everybody here. Be 21. Be 21. Don't be stupid.
Yeah, there's a lot of younger generations and even of age people that aren't drinking, period. So that's something we'll have to contend with as well.
Yeah. But then, it's so funny. We got pitched these stories like, dry January, new reports suggest moderate drinking could be better than like taking a month off.
Well, especially if you're a heavy drinker or you drink often, like going cold turkey is probably not the best thing for you.
Yeah. And so that's one thing, like, I hope, I'm never going to like shame people for doing dry January or sober October or whatever. Like, I don't care. Do what you please. I have a healthy relationship with beverage alcohol. But like, I feel like making it a big deal, like, does too much. Like, calling it dry January, calling it sober October, like, you don't need to wear these things as a medal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad you're doing it, like, by all means, but like, that's one thing I hope we can just like, if someone makes that personal decision, you don't have to tell anybody about it. Just go about your business. But we live in a different culture now. Everybody's got to tell everybody what they're doing.
Yeah. It's the holier than thou. I'm taking the month of January off from drinking. So you should too. If you don't, then you have a problem with alcohol, or, it's like, that's kind of the way it seems. It's like,
yeah, not everybody, but there are some people.
Yeah. But if you want to take a month off, like, you don't need to talk about how you're a vegan, but people do. Yeah.
Well, if you're vegan, we have a whole other issue.
Like,
with
how do you know somebody's a vegan? They're gonna tell you. How do you know somebody's participating in dry January? They're gonna tell you. They're probably gonna bitch a little bit. Shout out to our friend Dan, who's struggling currently.
7 days in, man. He's unfortunately, January is a long month too. Well, it's cold. It's dark. It's got 31 days.
Yeah. The snow and the kids at home for extra days when they weren't supposed to be because school is canceled for 3 days.
It should be Freedom February, right? 28 days. You get through the month of January. You got March on the other
I'll
side
take
of
that
it.
month off. Yeah, I'll take that month off because it's a short month and there's not shit going on in February.
And like there should be a rule if there's like a holiday like President's Day, like you get to drink, or Valentine's Day, you get to drink. There was I was listening to a podcast and they were like, all right, we're going to end up being like sober on Mondays and Thursdays, right? Because it was like there was games on Tuesdays and games on Saturdays and Sundays, and like, oh, you have to drink on the week. It has to be able to drink on the weekends. It was like Martha's birthday party, and I go to Martha's birthday party, so I'm gonna drink Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I think I could do Monday and Thursday.
Yeah,
because trivia night was Tuesday.
I can commit to Wednesdays and Thursdays.
I commit to any day I don't feel like drinking to not drink.
It's true too. It's like I'm gonna go out to eat with a friend. I'm gonna grab a beer. Like that's the hard part. Like,
are we gonna normalize having a beer again? Because I feel like for a while beers have been like off the table.
no.
Is beer back on?
Yeah, Mexican restaurant beer must have. Because I'm not a big time tequila guy, so it's like, give me a Modelo.
A little especial or negro?
Especial.
Okay.
Dos Equis dark. Modelo Especial.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But now they got like 80 different brands of Modelo. Like they have the Aurora and all that other stuff. But neither we are not a beer podcast. We're going to move on
at my my Fiesta time
and Fiesta time Mexicana. But anywho, now I want Mexican food. See, you've made me hungry now. You did it. But I will focus. Okay. So major prediction for 2025. What is it?
The return to the $40 bottle.
The return of the $40 bottle. Tell the listeners what that means.
So I think that we have skewed so far to the $150 bottle that there is going to just be a return to this median price bottle, which before, when we started the podcast, it was a $25, $30 bottle. It was your bottle of Makers or Knob Creek or, whatever. That was what people went and got. But now it's like everything is crept up in price. Everything is special or limited edition. It's $100+. I think we're just going to return to a solid 7, 8, 9, 10 year bourbon for $40 to $50. I think that like Jim Beam is probably championing that. 3 to 5 years ago when we talking on the podcast, I was like, Jim Beam sucks because they removed their age statements from everything. But notice how they're back.
I mean, Jim Beam's back in a big way, baby.
Yeah.
Like, I saw someone talking about like, oh, well, they only have like 4 product lines. Jim Beam Winter Reserve for $19.99 at Kroger. Buy every bottle you can.
6 year.
6 year toasted barrel bourbon. Like my big thing for 2025. I love craft whiskey. I love it, but it's the year of the big guy. It's the year of a Jim Beam this year. It's the year of Heaven Hill, Sazerac, like Buffalo Trace and 1792. Like those guys are going to put out banger after banger after banger this year.
Yeah.
Like, and they tipped the iceberg in 2025 or 24. I mean, in 25, you're going to see the rest of the portfolio come out. Mm-hmm. In my opinion,
they flexed their muscle.
They did. Like we just got a hint of it with like the reserves, like from Booker's and Little Book the Infinite. Like we got a hint of it.
9-year bourbon, Knob Creek, 7-year rye, like the bourbon and rye. Like it's a blend of both. Like it's going to be wild. Like I think maybe also like the age statements will come back because they can flex their muscles on that too. I think Maker's Mark will probably come out with like a 7-year age statement. Like I just feel now is the time.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, if Makers put out a Makers 10, like as a limited edition, kind of like Jack does, a Maker's 10 every year.
Well, they tried with the cellar aged. I just think they missed the mark a little bit in 23. I don't know about 24. I didn't try it, but I think I don't know. They come back down to the 7, 8, 9 year.
We did bourbon. I don't necessarily know it has to be like that long of aged, but like that's, I say that, but then like Old Fitz 15 is like one of my favorite pours of whiskey I've ever had in my life. So, it is a little bit difficult when all that comes together, but like, I do think it's the year of the major distillery. I think you're going to see some cool stuff out of craft. Frey Ranch, their anniversary blend is going to come out. I think you'll see some cool stuff come out of Still Austin. I think you'll see some cool stuff come out of High Bank as their new their own distillate has come of age. People have talking about Middle West. I think Huber's still has a lot more to offer. Coming out of Starlight.
Those milestone releases for crafts.
Yeah.
Or where they're gonna stand up, right? They have
100%.
to market those and be creative about how they introduce them to market. Don't just say like, oh, this is our new 5-year. Like,
nope.
It's gotta be something and also.
The packaging has to be leveled up. I mean, no different than like what Westward did with their milestone 2, right? Like, level it up, make it look good, make it feel good. I think craft will kind of hit these age statements, hit these like special things over the years. And then you have a craft player in Kentucky. We're sipping Preservation, their old stuff, but we talked about their pot still bourbon a little bit earlier, like me and you off camera. Like,
it's tasty.
They got a chance because all their other stuff's really expensive. Like if that pot still comes out at $60-$70 at 6 years old, it's got a chance.
And the fact that it says pot distilled kind of had me thrown for a loop because it doesn't taste pot distilled. It's really good, well-rounded. It's like, it's got a little bit of sharpness to it. Like I think the proofiness, but 7 year, is that 7, 6 year, 7?
6 year.
6 year. But yeah, I think that for 2025, 2025, to recap that, it's the return to the $40 bottle. Did I say 30? Maybe I meant 40.
You said 40.
The flexing of the age statements for the big brands. You say it's the big brands, period. Like it's their year. But then also those smaller
LTOs for craft.
And
then I think there's a carve out for that middle tier, like that in between craft and major. I think it's a big year for Penelope. I think it's a big year for New Riff. I think it's a big year for Rabbit Hole. Like those type of people that push volume that's kind of like in between them moving to a major distillery or not. I think they have a year because they are already at that price point. Bardstown Bourbon Company fits right there too.
Yeah.
Like their Origin series, like now they got a full year to crank all that stuff out at a better price point probably. Like that, I think Green River suited for a big year. Like that portfolio, those 6-7 companies that kind of fit in there. Jefferson's will fall in there as well. I think they have those.
Yeah. Building those true fans of those brands.
Yeah. I think those people will be huge. Like if you aren't probably picking up a bottle of Penelope or Rabbit Hole or New Riff, like probably once a month because they're affordable, like any of those 3 brands, you're probably missing out on just an easy sipping great time in that $30 to $40, $30 to $50 price point. And then if you want an LTO, they'll launch one at $70, $80.
Yeah. Even if you're just trying to introduce somebody to bourbon, like people are going to go out and pick up the big guys, right? We know that
100%.
Like, even if you're trying to introduce somebody to bourbon, pull out the bottle that's on your shelf that is from that mid-tier, that craft brand, like New Riff. Like, have you tried this? Like, challenge your friends to try something new.
Yeah.
Like, I like doing that too. It's like, hey, have you tried this? Like, I'm just going to leave this bottle with you. Drink it when you want.
Don't rest on your laurels.
Like, try it. I know you probably like your big, your bottle of Makers, your bottle of, Knob Creek, whatever you typically buy, but like try this different brand.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's a big thing is continue to try different brands. We talked about, continuing to support your craft distillers. I think you need to do that in 2025 as well. But that mid tier, I think is going to have a huge year. Like, we don't really have a name for those people. We call them craft. They're not craft because they produce at such a good scale. Those people are going to have a banner year as well. I'm really looking at what New Riff is doing. I'm really looking at what Penelope is doing. I think Bardstown's going to do some cool stuff again because they can produce at the cost-effective level in their Origin series, and they can do the limited edition stuff.
Yeah, the collaborative.
I think those three distilleries, throw in Green River just because they're part of Bardstown. I think you'll be looking at some really, really consistent whiskeys with a lot of good upside out of those places.
Some good perspective. It'll be interesting how it plays out. We don't control all of the.
I don't read tea leaves.
The stories, but it'll be interesting. I think that in general, the press releases will slow down. If you follow Bourbon Lens, you probably won't see as many articles every week or every day of every week. It seemed like for a while there in September, October, November, it was like, Jake, how are we going to keep up with all this?
We didn't.
There were lots we missed, but we tried to keep up. But it was 3 and 4 articles each day. Like you would handle some, I would handle some, and it was just like nonstop.
Yeah. Also, one other prediction. North Carolina is the next big distilling state.
Okay.
I don't know if a lot of it will come online this year, but I think you'll see continued growth out of Southern. I think Oak Lore will get bigger. I think Cook's Mill will get a little bit bigger. I think you've got some good footholds in what's coming out of North Carolina.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, just different markets. I mean, the regionality of American whiskey will be interesting, especially with American Single Malt.
Yep. Here it comes, baby. 2025's here, Scott. Let's buckle up and we'll sit back and let the story unfold, right?
As we do.
Yep. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. Let us know your predictions. Tell us what you think is going to happen in 2025. We'd love to hear. And we look forward to catching you on the next episode of the Bourbon Lens. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. Make sure you're connected with Scott and I via social media on Instagram, X, and Facebook. We'd love to connect. And if you're more the professional type, follow us over on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about Bourbon Lens, make sure you're subscribed to our weekly newsletter, The Weekly Pour. For exclusive content and more, check out Patreon. Follow us there at Bourbon Lens. And last but not least, on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're subscribed because every Monday, Scott and I release a podcast, and we would love to have you here listening to the newest features and the newest whiskey news. And until next time, cheers.